Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to BWTM Sports. This is part 2 of our preview to George Groves versus Jamie Cox. Apologies for what happened earlier. I have no idea why it is. Conspiracy theories regarding Google and BWTM continue. Us being disconnected once again. Okay, we're back with the manager of Jamie Cox, Dean Edwards. Dean?
Hello,
We're back on it now. So we were talking about Jamie Cox, and we'll talk about it being his time. Why is it his time, Jamie? Why is it his time, Dean?
Well, we feel this is, as I was just saying before we got cut off, he's been boxing a long time. 2006, he won the Commonwealth Games gold medal as an amateur. And, since then he's gone on and developed a string of wins, through different problems, promotional and personal issues. His career, he hasn't had as many fights as he probably would have liked, but he's 24 and 0. He's got absolutely every, as you touched on briefly as well before we got cut off, every ability and everything to cause George Groves every problem that he could ever, have nightmares about. You only get this golden ticket once of this magnitude in most sports, especially boxing. And really, with his age, his maturity, his personal life, his training, everything, physically, everything has come together at the exact right time for Jamie Cox.
Okay, the George Groves style from when he was with Adam Booth to Paddy Fitzpatrick to Shane McGuigan. Tell me the evolution or the changes of George Groves that you've noticed.
Well, the changes are for us, which is good. For the worse, when he separated his ways with Adam Booth, that is when he was at his best.
Agreed.
I'm not going to give away too much of his faults and what we know and what we see. I've been down. I know Adam Booth pretty well. I've been down there, worked with him. Again, Chris Keane is a very, very, very similar style to how Adam Booth likes to train fighters naturally. That counter punching, slip up to the outside and hit you with that short right hand and forcing you to fall in. Davey Day, and what George Groves loves to do. So George Groves is not a box of tricks. And as the saying goes, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. We know exactly what we're getting with George Groves. He can't do nothing new, and he can't learn nothing new. And that's not being short-sighted or being naive. He literally can't. He hasn't got the legs. He hasn't got the engine, and he hasn't got the chin. He's in the twilight of his career. Realistically, he was very, very lucky to win that world title
against Chudinov.
Yes, Chudinov is a small man. Chudinov is small at that weight. He's shorter than Jamie. He's nowhere near as thick set as Jamie. And Chudinov really played into Groves' hands, but Groves was blowing heavily, coming in straight lines, playing into his hands, just boom, boom, high guard, typical Eastern European high guard, taking them on your gloves. And he was wearing George down. George has not got the engine. The longer this fight goes for George, as John has said, and he's hit the nail on the head, John Costello, Jamie's trainer, it's bad news for George. George's only real hope is to try and come out and all guns blazing. But is George brave enough? In his heart, he knows he's not, because he knows really Jamie would love that and he'll knock him flat out.
Now the thing is, I've called George Groves a couple of times, and I've got a lot of flack on this channel for calling George Groves for how I see him to be. I think he's a very overrated fighter, and his best days were with Adam Booth. Now,
100%.
Now, there's a few things I can speak out on George Groves. I said to a lot of people that Froch would come from behind and stop him in the first fight. That happened. They had the rematch. I said Froch would come from behind and stop him in the second fight. That happened. I said that Badou Jack would beat him, even though a lot of the British fans and British public were saying that George Groves was going to beat Badou Jack. I said, well, listen, don't underestimate Badou Jack. Badou Jack's got what it takes to beat George Groves, and he punches a little bit as well. And I said, don't be surprised if Badou Jack drops George Groves in this fight. And what does he do? First round, drops George Groves, and George Groves tires as always down the stretch. In this fight, I really think, having looked at George Groves in the Chudinov fight, which I didn't think he looked good in, I think he looked really bad from the start. His balance looked all over the place, and that was from the start of the fight. He looked terrible. Now, for me, I mean, a lot of George Groves fans are very blindsided, and a lot of them don't see George for what he actually is, as opposed to what they want him to be. And I'm not disrespecting George Groves. I think he's an exciting fight. He's a guy that you tune in, you know you're going to get a good fight with George Groves because he's going to give it his all one way or the other. However, I'm not sure if what Shane McGuigan's teaching him is helping him in his quest for longevity at the highest level. Example, go ahead.
No, you go on, sorry. Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. What can he teach him?
This is my point. This is my what teaching bad habits. Now, one of the things George has developed, in my opinion, is now he's leaving the left hand out there, and leaves himself vulnerable to a right hand over the top. I've seen it, and I saw him get buzzed by David Brophy, not a puncher. I saw him get buzzed by Martin Murray, not a big middleweight. So a super middleweight, and he wasn't a big puncher at middleweight. So how he's buzzing George Groves at super middleweight and bringing him into life and death struggle, I don't know. So he's been in quite a few fights, George Groves, and to be honest, I call him a TV fighter. But in this fight in particular, there's a real possibility that George Groves could get knocked out within 6 rounds in this fight. Real possibility.
Listen, I'm not going to call people out, but people who know George and have worked with George and this, that, and the other. George developed and took on the style that he did for 2 reasons. One, he's got no footwork, okay? He's always started, Adam Booth had him squatting down on his shots, fainting, being patient, forcing you to fall in because he can punch a little bit, okay? So you fall in, wait over your front foot, and he'll catch you, and he can buzz you or turn your lights out. We'll give him that. Okay, he's got a decent jab that comes up from his hip with power, but he puts every single thing into that empty gases so quickly. Okay, there's very, very easy ways to navigate George Groves' jab and his right hand. Other than that, he's got nothing else. But he doesn't bend them legs anymore. He hasn't got them legs that he had with Adam Booth.
Exactly.
Okay, George is very upright now. You know, and as I said, I could reel off about 30 things George Groves does absolutely terrible. But I'm not gonna. The weaknesses far outweigh his strengths.
At this stage of his career, absolutely.
Well, throughout his whole career, if you give him, you know, look at him against Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson, just a rough, tough, rugged guy. Kenny Anderson had him in all sorts of trouble then as well.
Exactly. I think his best night for me. His best night for me was when he fought Glenn Johnson.
Yeah, look, he developed the style he took on Adam Booth, okay, because he's never had a chin, and he's bad on his feet. So he developed this. He could punch a little bit, and he developed this jerky feinting, facing, forcing you to fall in, make mistakes, so he can counter you. Okay, George Groves is a back foot fighter. He's fought all southpaws and had success with because he's forced them southpaws to come plowing forward when they're all natural counter punching back foot, what you would naturally assume a southpaw to be like. So that's why he's had so much success with the southpaws. And as he keeps mentioning, I've never had a problem. No, because you've got into your head and you've forced natural counter punching back foot southpaws to come plowing forward, which they're not used to. It's like forcing George Groves to come forward. He's appalling. He's a terrible come forward fighter. George Groves is. His balance is bad. His footwork's bad. He likes to counter and sit and wait, and just be patient.
Okay. For people who
say, it's not a box of tricks.
For people who are just coming into the room and might not be clued up, could you please remind them who you are?
What, with Jamie?
No, yeah, who you are in respect to Jamie and what you do, because we've just done the show. We've started the show again.
I manage Jamie Cox and also help John Costello training with the training, and I do Jamie Cox's cuts. But I've been in and around boxing professionally for more than 12 years and worked every sort of fight from an international British Masters through to Midland area title fights, Commonwealth, English, British, European, and even worked corners in world title fights.
Thank you. Just to clarify that. So, we were talking about the Jamie Cox George Groves fight, and what do you think? What do you think George Groves does well, in your opinion?
He's patient.
Mm-hmm.
He has a good jab,
mm-hmm.
and he has a very good short right hand. Other than that, I don't think he does an awful lot very good.
Do you think he's?
From a boxing point of view.
Would you say he's a seasoned pro now? I mean, he's had the experiences. He's been knocked out. He's very experienced, and I would never disrespect George Groves. You know, he's achieved an awful lot. It's a tough old sport and a long old road, and lonely at times in this game. You know, and he's achieved a lot, and you can't take nothing away from him. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's always going to give it, you know, a good, you know, his best or a good go. And he is, I would describe George as a world-class 4 or a 5-round fighter. Agreed. I've said that millions of times. If George Groves was to fight in a prize fighter, he'd probably win the prize, the super middleweight prize fighter championship. He'd be amazing.
He'd probably win middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight. At 3-4 5 rounds maximum. He's a world class 4 or 5 round fighter.
He is.
That's no disrespect to him, but he just isn't. He just isn't a 12 grueling round fighter.
He
falls apart. And I personally believe, I could be wrong, but my personal opinion in watching George his whole career is in his heart, he's got doubt. He's a doubter. He doubts himself, hence why he likes to play mind games.
See, the thing with this fight and George Groves, the thing with George Groves and a lot of George Groves fans, they don't like to look at the facts. They like to make things up about George Groves. We know that he blows out of his ass after 5 rounds. We know that his chin is questionable. We know he's been flattened and knocked out before. But the George Groves fans seem to forget all of this. And they seem to like this just pave over the cracks every time. He did not look good against Chudinov. His balance was all over the place when he started that fight against Chudinov. But for some reason, I don't know why George Groves fans seem to pave over the cracks.
Yeah, well, I'm not obviously. Look, I'm not going to stick up for George Groves.
No, obviously not.
I don't want to slate him. You know, if you look at any fighters' fans, they all think that they're the new messiah and they're the best thing since sliced bread. You know, everybody raves about Anthony Joshua, and as great as he is, you know, he's a big unit. But really, is he as great as what everybody thinks he really is? I personally don't think so. I just think he's just a newer, fresher version of Frank Bruno, to be honest.
A lot of people say that. But people also...
He's too heavy and muscular. For somebody who's an Olympic gold medalist, he's not that good on his feet. You know, and again, his chin is questionable, but then again, you know, no disrespect. Any heavyweight, their chin's going to be questionable when you got another big man over 16, 17 stone banging you on it in small gloves.
Of course. People are saying that George Groves is levels above Jamie Cox. Well, I don't believe that, but anyway, I think George Groves.
I wonder though. Have you asked anybody, or would anybody be able to? I don't know whether people can message you while we're talking live. On what grounds is George Groves levels above Jamie Cox? Is that just on the level of opponents he's fought? And if so, really, you can't use that because he's been absolutely battered by him. So You can't use that as a defence, can you? To say his level's above Jamie Cox.
I see that. I mean, there are people who will say these things, and then when the fight's over, they'll go running back into their cave and say, "Oh, I didn't say that," or you'll not see them for weeks. If this is the way boxing is, people don't accept when they get it wrong. You know, I think people are, you know, expecting George Groves to walk it against Jamie Cox and think he's just a bum. Maybe get a very nasty shock. They might get a nasty shock.
I hope so.
Yeah, they're calling.
I hope George Groves does think Jamie Cox is a bum, and it's an easy night. I hope so.
Yeah, people. There's a few people in the room that are saying that you're a casual because you called Anthony Joshua a unit, a big unit.
What should I have described him as?
I don't know. You know how some people are.
An Adonis figure of a man.
I don't know. Listen.
He's a big unit. He's 6'6", 18 stone almost, or 17 and a half stone, and he's got muscle on top of muscle. Well, what do you want me to describe him as?
But you know what? I don't listen to a lot of people. Listen, when Terence Crawford fought Burns, I told everybody Terence Crawford is going to absolutely destroy Ricky Burns, going to outbox him or outmasterclass him. I said that, and I'd looked at Terence Crawford beforehand. When people don't know your name, there are a lot of lazy people in boxing. They won't go and do the research into people. They won't look at him. They'll just say, "Have you heard that name? Has he been promoted by Sky? Has he been given the big?" No, I don't know him. I don't know. He's a bum.
You know what, Ebro?
Yes.
You know what, mate? I hope people think that about me. I'm a casual. I don't know what I'm on about. I've got no knowledge in boxing, and I'm happy with that. Hence why a lot of people probably don't know my name, because as I've said in the first part of the interview, it's not about me. It's about the fighters. You know, they're the ones who train and put their lives on hold and put their lives on the line and risk everything. They're the ones who get all the reward. I don't want it to be about me. I'm not one of these trainers or promoters or managers or anyone who wants to be in every little bit of the limelight or jump in every photo. I'm not a Joe Gallagher. I'm not that. It's not about me. I'm not interested. I don't care who knows me or who thinks I'm a casual. I'm happy with that. I'm happy being a nobody. I love boxing. I know my boxing. And that's not being big-headed. I know the sport of boxing. I study boxing. I'm a student of the sport.
I know. Let me ask you a question. For me, it's a redundant question, but do you think Jamie Cox could beat Martin Murray?
Do I think he could beat Martin Murray? Of course I do.
I know it's a redundant question.
I think that that's a very, very good fight. To be honest, Martin Murray can offer more resistance, in my opinion, than George Groves.
I think resistance-wise, he can.
I think, like I just said, resistance. He could offer up more than what George Groves can. George Groves' biggest thing, as we know, and he's not a box of tricks, is that he can punch a little bit, and he's patient. But realistically, beyond that, you've got to do a lot of searching, haven't you, to see what else he's he's great at. Is he better than Jamie Cox at combinations? No. George Groves not a combination puncher. Has he got faster hands than Jamie Cox? No, he is not. Can he punch harder than Jamie Cox? Well, I haven't let George Groves hit me, but I'd say no. From what I know and from other people who have sparred, has he got better footwork than Jamie Cox? No, he hasn't. Has he got better angles or movement than Jamie Cox? No, he hasn't. Has he got a better chin than Jamie Cox? 1,000,000% he hasn't. So, what has he got really that makes him levels above Jamie Cox?
A lot of people do dine out on that right hand that Froch landed on, that George Groves landed on Froch. But what they forget is Froch got up and knocked him out or stopped him. So I don't understand what.
Don't get me wrong. That was a quality of a right hand.
Yeah, but
let's have it right. Carl Froch is a bit poor on his feet. He was square on. Again, going back to what George Groves does very well, he forces you to fall in, and that's what Carl Froch done there. He made the mistake. He made sure he never made that mistake again. That was his money shot on Carl Froch, and he couldn't capitalise on it.
And in the rematch, it never happened.
You know why, Ingram? Because like I've said, I've pointed on, he's got doubt in his own heart. He knows in his own heart. George Grove knows in his own heart. That's why he likes to play mind games. He knows what he's capable of, and he knows what he's not capable of. And the minute he can't knock you out or really dent you in 4 or 5 rounds, and he starts feeling it himself, he starts wilting.
Now, again, a reminder, those people in the room, this is the manager of Jamie Cox, Dean Edwards. Right. Dean, the question mark about Jamie Cox's punching power at super middleweight. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we're yet to see at world level, but what I will say on that regarding that is there's footage of Jamie Cox sparring Olympic silver medalist over in America when Jamie was employed to be Saul Alvarez's partner for the Kirkland fight, and Jamie was over there for 6 weeks sparring. And he was in the Mayweather gym because Mayweather was originally going to spar Jamie. Jamie went over with Jack Catterall. And when Jamie sparred this Olympic silver medalist 2 or 3 times, Jamie done him every time, floored him and had him out. Mayweather then refused to spar with Jamie Cox. He would only spar with Jack Catterall, who was lighter than him. He didn't want to spar with Jamie, and he wouldn't put no one else in his dog pound or dog house, you know, as they like to say, the bully things that they do and get people sparring. But he wouldn't let nobody else spar with Jamie Cox. So that speaks for itself. Also, there are current world champions and people who are fully fledged super middleweights who are known to have good chins and all that. Jamie has you know, knocked out in 16-ounce gloves and head guards. And that's pretty common. That is, I'm not going to name no names, but a lot of people already know about these instances and who these people are.
Well, listen, I've heard those stories before. I've heard a lot of those stories before about Jamie Cox. They're not rumors. I know these events have happened with Jamie Cox. So, you know, it all depends on what happens come fight night. You know.
Of course it does. Yeah, it all comes down to who gets their tactics, who's mentally prepared correctly, and who implements their game plan for fight night. We're not stupid. We know that.
Yeah.
George Groves is a very dangerous fighter, and he's a world champion for a very good reason. He's not being underestimated at all. But we know what Jamie's capable of, and we know, thanks to John Costello and Des Witter and everybody else, how Jamie is prepared and the condition and the shape that he is in.
Can you talk to me a bit more about the transition from middleweight to super middleweight a bit more, because that is a sticking point. People are in the room asking questions like, "Oh, you know, can you name the fighters that Cox has dropped?" I'm not even going to go into a sort of conversation that that's what.
I'll tell you straight. No, I wouldn't do that because it's disrespectful and it's not good. I only touched upon that subject because they're sort of very badly kept secrets. But for me personally, sparring stories, you know, like that, should be kept in the gym.
Absolutely.
You know, there's no disrespect. There's no disrespect in that anyway. You know, anybody can be knocked out by anybody. So, you know, there's no disrespect in that. I just touched on I haven't touched on other subjects that people probably aren't more aware of regarding punching power. I've only touched on the certain couple of subjects, including the YouTube footage of Jamie over in America and the couple of instances where people already are aware of that situation. I wouldn't go into the worries or naming people or the instances that people aren't aware of that Jamie's done it, but it's a common occurrence, including big cruiserweights that I've witnessed with my own eyes who are very heavy-handed, good-chinned, decent, very, very decent European level operators, and I've seen him knock them out as well, mate. So his punch power for me is not overrated, but we will see, as the world will see, on Saturday night.
Interesting, very interesting. A lot of people here will tweet and text and say, "I'm trying to be smart," but ask him to go down the bookies and put money on it, on George Groves. It'll be interesting to see if they do it or not.
Ask me to put money on it.
Not you, them. These people that are in the room chatting.
I wouldn't ask nobody to put money on any. You know, money. You know, it's the climate and the way, you know, money's tight for people. Hence why, you know, we're all very grateful for people who buy tickets and come out to the shows. You know, big shows, small shows especially. You know, because money's tight, so you know every boxer deserves respect, and their support is greatly appreciated.
Well, I mean, people have come back and talking about Cox's past, and I think they're talking about his past and how
Well, they will do. Yeah, that's when Jamie's name's mentioned. That's all that anyone ever seems to throw up.
Yeah, I know they do. Why? But why do you think that is?
Because what else are they going to say, Ingram? What really? Look, if you have an argument or you don't like somebody for whatever reason, are you going to say, you see you, when you have an argument, you're such a lovely fella, you're not, are you? You want to pick up faults. People love, especially these trolls and the internet hard cases, love throwing up a load of nonsense and you know, like I said, there's two sides to every single story. The instances where Jamie's had problems, you know, if he's at fault, I know he's a good, honest, loyal kid. He would throw his hands up and say, yeah, but unfortunately, he's been on the wrong end of some bad lies and bad situations.
It's a shame that people have to focus on that. I mean, people don't talk about.
I'm not surprised, Derek.
People don't talk about Joshua and his criminal record. People don't talk about that, but they're quick to throw it up about Jamie Cox. Very interesting.
Of course there are. You know, look, I know a few things. Well, no, I'm not even going to go. I'm not even going to go down that route, mate, because then you're just lowering yourself to people's standards. But look, look, people are sheep. People will follow. You know, everybody jumps on a train, and yeah, they're all behind certain people. Then all of a sudden, some goes wrong. Oh, you know, well, you know. So people are sheep. We don't expect nothing less, to be honest. You know, we expect Jamie to be an underdog, and it's over every boxing forum or social media. Yeah, you know, you'll have some smart ass who'll throw out, oh, but you know, you do this, that, and the other, don't you? Yeah, okay, mate. Just water off a duck's back. You just got to take no notice, mate. So
they're talking about the time where Jamie Cox sparred with Kell Brook. Can you tell us anything about that?
They're good spars. Ingram, really.
Yep.
That's you know, they're good spars. Jamie always gets good quality sparring. As I say, he was employed to spar with Saul Alvarez for 6 weeks for the full camp. For the Kirkland fight, and Alvarez rates Jamie very, very, very highly. Now, to be honest, I'm more inclined to take Saul Alvarez's opinions than I am some internet warrior who wants to throw up some nonsense past about Jamie's.
Yeah, absolutely. Who was the gold medalist Cox dropped in sparring?
Oh, I can't bloody think of his name, you know, mate, off the top of my head. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
You can YouTube it. The kid was out of it. Fair play, got up and warriored on. But Jamie actually then done him again another day. That wasn't filmed. Worse than that time. So that was in the. I'm sure that was in the Mayweather gym.
Okay. Now, I want to bring an example of something and how people are short-sighted. I did a preview video on Eubank Jr. versus Anvi, and I said that Anvi was vulnerable to the uppercut. I said that he'll come in straight lines. I said that unless his trainer has tactically looked at Eubank and looked to capitalize on Eubank's weaknesses, he's going to run into something early and get caught with something early. And he got caught with the uppercut in the first round. Now, the sparring story about Andy was he knocked out James DeGale's tooth. Or something. He knocked out his teeth. So somehow, him knocking out James DeGale's teeth made him this animal that was going to knock out Chris Eubank Jr. And I didn't see it that way because he made too many mistakes. So tell us your thoughts about that fight with Eubank Jr. and Andy before the fight and after the fight.
Yeah, I knew that Andy was very limited, really. You know, I knew Eubank would beat him. I didn't think he'd probably get him out there as quickly, or the finish would be look as good as he did, but he done a good job, didn't he?
He did, but the guy that just came walking in straight lines, and he had no game plan.
Wow. You'd be surprised how many fighters fight in these straight lines. George Groves is a straight line fighter, even though he's a back foot fighter. Everything's straight lines.
That's true.
Anthony Joshua, again, is a straight line fighter. These are all the game is full of these straight line fighters that people rave about. But if you look at their fundamentals and technically, are they as good as what people make them out to be? You know, you're playing into certain fighters' hands. If you do come steaming in like Shoonoff did with Groves, straight lines, just walking, offering him nothing except for a target to slug away.
There are some things I've seen in Jamie Cox I do like. Hand speed, like can works body and head. There are a lot of guys that head punches. He works from body to head. Very interesting.
Yeah.
This guy, Mr. 011 says, let's see what he's saying here. George Groves is not a straight line fighter. Can you just find what you mean by that, please? I didn't say that.
He's not a straight line fighter.
That's what somebody's asked.
He's not a straight line fighter.
Okay, explain that, please. I didn't say that. This is Mr. 011.
He doesn't think that George Groves is a straight line fighter.
Well, I think he is, but there you go. You can explain it to him, please.
I don't know, mate. I don't know. How many years of coaching experience have you got? How many fights have you actually watched of George Groves? Because he'll go feint, jab, feint, take two little short shuffle steps back in a straight line, try and just slip the right hand across himself when you're falling, and then he goes back in a straight line again. You'll never see him pivot off his front foot or even pivot at all. Look at him when he tried to counter with the left hook against Carl Froch. He went back in a straight line against the ropes and threw some big wild hook off the ropes, and Carl got to him and nailed him with a big right hand. His shot got there quicker. Again, led up to that, straight lines. I don't know. Maybe he's right and I'm wrong. He could be. I'll have to go back and have a look at the videos. I think George Groves is a straight line fighter.
You know, you know what I like? I love it when somebody comes on and talks about the science of boxing, and you've probably befuddled that person you said that to. You've probably befuddled him. Right. Let's see what people are saying. I'm loving this. Ricker Hakkinen says, is Cox smashing all these world champions to pieces in sparring? Why does he struggle to do it on Fight Night versus Journeyman with more losses than wins on their record?
Which Journeyman? I'm going to message you quickly. What Journeyman did he struggle to do it with on Fight Night? Because all the other Journeymen, I believe that he now with either, no disrespect, Alistair Warren, who gets wins against lads on the road. I believe he iced him with a short body shot, doubled up to the head, to the chin, and iced him. In Ireland, I believe the Journeyman that went 4 or 5 rounds with Eubank Jr. I believe Jamie nailed him with a right hook over the top to his temple, and the geezer woke up rubbing his head, didn't know what day he was. So what Journeyman is he relating to the Taylor fight, Jamie's last fight? Ask him.
I don't know. I'll ask him. Are you relating to the last fight? Oh, the Martin Fidel Rios fight. That's what he's talking about. One and the Georgie Kindelaki fight. Yes, Rios fight.
Wow, the Kindelaki fight we used. A strange change. We used it to try and work certain things over in Spain. So that was used as, for a strategic exercise. And the Rios fight's a very tough kid. I do believe that Rios was very unlucky and dropped the same fighter who knocked out Matthew Macklin and went on and won the WBC title and took him the distance. So I do believe that fighter there, not only is he a dirty fighter, he knew how to survive, he knew how to not get hit cleanly, and in my opinion, he's a bit of an handful, but, Jamie still got the job done. The fight was dirty on both parts. You know, that kid was spitting at Jamie, bit him, dropped the nut on him, hit him low, hit him after the break. You know, and Jamie being Jamie, he politely obliged back because you know that's what he'd do.
I looked at that fight and I saw that was the fight where I saw Jekyll and Hyde with Jamie Cox. I saw him in I think the first round. Was it the first round? No, the second round. He got nailed with 2 good hard shots by Rios, and then in the third round I saw him box.
Rios can punch, you know. Rios can punch a little bit himself. He can. You know, I think he's Alenius. Well, no, not Alenius. I can't think of the fighter's name. He fought for a WBC title.
Yes.
He knocked out Macklin.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. That was on. I know the guy that
he dropped him. Rios dropped him and had him in all sorts of trouble and narrowly lost by a point or two over, I can't remember, 10 or 12 rounds. So I think he's used a bad opponent there really to name as struggling with, because he didn't struggle because Jamie dropped him, and I think the scorecards read something like 99 to or 99 or 100 to 90. I mean 88 or something. I think it was stupid. It was a 10-round fight, and Jamie won every round, and I think got 10-8 rounds or something, 86. So I wouldn't say he struggled there.
Chris Mason from Darts and Boxing asks the question: how will Groves feel when Cox still there after 6 rounds and he's blowing?
How will who feel? Sorry.
How will Groves feel when Cox is still there after 6 rounds and he's blowing?
Well, I can't answer that. I can't answer that for George Groves, but my own personal, and again, look, everything I'm saying here, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not Mr. Know-it-all. I'm just saying it's my interpretation and my opinion. I believe that George Groves, that's where he starts to doubt himself then, and he lacks a little bit of, you know, that creeps into his heart. You've seen it in the Carl Froch fights. He starts to feel a bit sorry for himself.
Saw it in the Badou Jack fight as well.
Badou Jack fight, you know, that's, and again, look, I'm not right, Ingram. I'm not saying anything throughout these interviews that I've done. I'm not saying I'm Mr. Know-it-all, or I'm right in anything I'm saying. It's just my personal and humble opinion.
I remember the guy that knocked out Macklin. Macklin was on the comeback trail, and a lot of people thought Macklin was going to do this guy. This guy turned around and knocked Macklin out in the 10th round. I remember the guy well.
That's who Rios had on the floor and had in all sorts of trouble in the 11th round or something it was. So that person who messaged in unfortunately used a bad opponent there to say he struggled with, because he needs to look at the scorecard as well. And Jamie won every round, and I think 2 of them he had as a 10-8 round. I think Jamie lost 1.99, and that's because he had a point taken off.
I will mention this point. People are talking about the George Groves left jab. I will counter that before you say something and say that left jab is also now added by Shane McGuigan. He keeps the left hand out there, and he's liable for a counter over the top with the right hand. Now he's fighting the southpaw.
Well,
go ahead.
He has. What I will say for them people, they're right. In my opinion, again, George Groves has got a fantastic. I like George Groves' jab. He tries to put a little bit too much into every single jab. Hence one of the reasons I feel why he blows a lot sooner than he does. But he has got a very good jab. He's got a very good jab, and he's got a very good short right hand.
Okay. Highland, that's the guy. Highland was the guy that stopped Macklin.
Highland. What did I say, Highland?
You said Hellenius.
I've got it mixed up with Chisora, the one in Chisora fought.
Yeah.
For the
Highland, you've title.
Highland. That's it. Yeah, I knew it was something like
that. Yeah. Dwayne Lovett says James DeGale told me that he would want a lot of money to take Cox as a voluntary defence.
Well, that's what he's told him. I can't speak for that.
Okay.
James DeGale's a clever man and a good businessman. And to be honest, if I was any fighter, I would want good money to fight Jamie Cox as well.
What about the jab? Do you think Jamie Cox is going to have a problem with the jab of George Groves? Uh-oh. Hold on.
The actual speed of it.
Yeah, how does he deal with the jab of George Groves?
Well, he will navigate that very quickly because ding ding, round one, George Groves come steaming out, centre of the ring, feint, jab, feint, feint, solid jab, feint. So we know what he's going to do. So within 15 to 20 seconds, he would have thrown 2 or 3 jabs. He won't throw many more than that in that 15 or 20 seconds because he's not, in my opinion, a world-class fighter will probably throw 50, 60 jabs around a top-level world-class fighter. He can't throw that. George Groves can't. You know, so Jamie will gauge the speed that jab comes out, where his hand's coming back to, where he's positioning his body weight. You know, does he lean out? Does he bring his own right hand across himself to try and counteract if he's going to be countered? You know, as I say, which way is he positioning his body weight off his jab to draw the next shot? You know, these are all things that, you know, he will gauge very, very quickly. He's very capable of, and he's a very good boxer with a fantastic boxing brain, so he will gauge all that very quickly.
Fantastic. Okay, I think we've probably talked about George Groves and Jamie Cox to death. Let's talk a little bit more about other fights. There's a guy that actually came to the gym, I believe, recently and sparred with Jamie Cox, who I've recently interviewed. He revealed it his name is Liam Cameron. You know who he is?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, he came and sparred with Jamie Cox. He said how Jamie Cox was he was definitely the business, hits very hard, and Cameron carries a very good chin himself.
Yeah.
So talk to us about it.
What do you want
to know? Whatever you're prepared to tell me.
Not much. Cameron's a nice kid, as are all the sparring partners that have came down, and we're very grateful for all of their help. They've all been very useful.
Okay, right. Well, okay, we'll go another angle. Liam Cameron versus Sam Sheedy. From what you've seen of Liam Cameron, how's his preparations been?
Yeah, he seems well. Sheedy's very, very awkward. He's an awkward kid. He runs like hell. I had Andrew Robinson, me and John Costello again. We had Andrew Robinson fight Sheedy in a British Eliminator. Sheedy then won. Well, I'll go on record as saying this because Glenn Rhodes, you know, everybody knew Andrew Robinson got robbed that night. It was appalling, including Glenn Rhodes, who's a very, very, he's a gentleman and a very knowledgeable boxing man, came over and said, "You guys got that. You know, it's the way it goes. We've been on the wrong end before and that, but, you know, that's a bad decision." And that's Sheedy's own trainer and team that came and said that to us. Gentlemen, absolute gentlemen they are, but, you know, it was a poor decision. You know, if Cameron puts pressure on Sheedy, doesn't allow him to box and be slipping and sliding behind a good jab, double jab to keep him off balance, I think he'll beat Sheedy.
Oh, interesting. Very interesting. I know. Well, I can elaborate a bit more on that sparring session with Cox, because Cameron told me that while they were sparring, Jamie Cox hit him with a big left hand, an overhand left. He said, and he said it was a big shot. He took it, but he said that Cox can definitely bang.
Yeah. That's nice to know, isn't it?
You're not biting.
We might stand a chance. We might stand a chance Saturday night then.
Yeah, you're not biting, are you, Dean?
No. Regarding sparring and all that, look, you've got to. I have every respect for every single fighter who ever steps through the ropes. Amateur, you know, whatever you may be, journeyman, whatever people want to say, you know, they're all brave men, who give their all for, you know, modern day Romans, really, for entertainment. You know, and they all deserve respect. They've all got their own talents and abilities, and are all good in their own ways, and all deserve respect. It's not for me to say, you know, even though, you know, I've pointed out a few of Groves' bad points, but it's not for me to say, oh yeah, this fighter's no good, that fighter. They're all good in their own way. Yeah. You know, it's how you navigate their strengths and turn them into weaknesses that matter.
People are like sheep, I'm telling you, because you'll say something and then somebody else will just repeat it afterwards. Sparring means nothing. Sparring means a lot. Depending on the context of what the sparring session is. If it's an open sparring session where, you know what, you've got to go out there and it's not a practice, it's as a proper tear up or proper let's go sort of sparring session. It's very different to a practice session where one person's working on defense and one person's working on attack. Very different sparring sessions. So depending on the intensity of the sparring sessions.
You can have different sparring sessions.
Exactly.
But I will also say in defense to some of them people, sparring doesn't really gauge or matter for anything, because I've had some fighters who literally, they turn up to a gym and within a round they come back, you go, listen son, are you allowed to swear in room?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. I've said, what the fuck are you doing? Have you ever boxed in your fucking life, son? Why are you playing that? It's like they've never put a fucking boxing glove on.
It's true.
And then any other time, you know, they're like the world class, mate.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've heard it. I know.
They're absolute world class.
Let me give you an example. Now, people say, "Oh, sparring means nothing." Then you heard all the sparring sessions about Errol Spence. I don't matter. Errol Spence ain't the real thing. Who's Errol Spence for? Then he comes over and fights. He fights Kell Brook and beats Kell Brook. And then now everyone's saying, "Oh, Errol Spence is pound for pound this and pound for pound that." People can be fickle.
People are fickle, aren't they?
They are very
fickle.
fickle.
And that's what I'm saying. People are like sheep. People will just follow the crowd, aren't they? You know what I mean, mate? But really, look, sparring realistically doesn't mean nothing, because, as I say, I've had fighters who are absolutely appalling at sparring, and you'll have a novice kid come in and absolutely punch the head off him, and you're like, son, what the fuck are you playing at, man? You're never going to be ready for the fight. To get to fight there and absolutely annihilate the opponents, or they're like fucking Floyd Mayweather and put on a masterclass, and you're like, fuck, where did that come from? You know, so really, you can't always gauge from sparring. You can't. So
here's this.
I will agree with that to a certain extent.
I'm gonna add my own. I'm gonna add my own take on it and see how people follow this. Sparring means something depending on the intensity of the sparring and what is going on in the sparring. If a person is doing defense and attack sparring session, training sparring, that doesn't mean as much as somebody going, okay, right, this is 6 rounds, go at him, attack him, and the other guy saying, go for it. Now, if you've got a sparring session like that, it's very different to somebody saying, right, we're just going to work on defense today. Very different sparring session. It's the intensity of the sparring session that surely has got to mean something. Because if it's an intense sparring session, as opposed to, and fists are flying, like when George Groves was sparring Carl Froch, that was genuinely a sparring session. Or even when Eubank was sparring Froch, that's a different intensity. You know?
Yeah, you have some fighters who, when they spar, they're bad sparers, or they're not liberty takers, and then you have other fighters who literally, the minute they put the gloves on, hold no prisoners, and whether you're a world champion or you've had no fights or a novice, they'll try and take your head off.
Now, Abel Sanchez.
You have different fighters.
Abel Sanchez told me a story about George Groves when he sparred Gennady Golovkin. He said to me, they were sparring, and before they sparred, Abel offered George Groves a rib guard, and George kindly declined. So they're sparring. The first round was all okay, and then George decided to dig one in a little harder, and Gennady said, "Okay, fine." So then Gennady returned the favor and broke George's rib.
Yeah. Well, going back to Jamie again, there's an unbeaten light heavyweight prospect, and people love him. And this, I think he's going to be great. And they say, Jamie sparred him, broke his ribs, put him out of a proposed fight he had. And then again, because the kid tried to go hard, and again he sparred him about 4 months later. Kid tried to go a bit hard again. Jamie didn't want to take the piece, but he tried to go hard again. Jamie, same thing again, cracked his ribs with a body shot, same as the Kandalaki fight. That was used, going back to that was used when someone mentioned it, that was used for a specific purpose. Now, Kandalaki tried to get a little bit too clever and tried to become too rough, and Jamie decided just to put him in his place and dropped him. To say, come on, no, look, you know, I'm using it for a purpose, but don't try and take the piece. So you know, you can, you know, fighters can do that.
Interesting. Io says, if you've been sparring 5 guys back to back and then you get dropped by the last guy, it doesn't mean anything. Like I said, sparring, the intensity and what the purpose of the sparring session is, that's how we can tell whether we can take any serious. Look, if a guy's skilled, you can tell whether he's got skill or not. Is that correct in sparring?
Well, again, I agree with you, but I also agree with the people who are saying the same thing, you know, to an extent. You can't take nothing from sparring. And as I said earlier on in the interview, any single person can, when grown who are trained athletes, okay, and trained how to throw punches correctly, okay, when they're throwing punches with purpose, any single person or another man can and will at some point be dropped or knocked out or hurt. It's the law of gravity. It will happen. So it doesn't. You can't take no reference from that by people who are being knocked out, people who are being dropped, or people who are good sparrers or bad sparrers, or every time he eats this person he hurts them, because you know they're grown men. You know they're training to do what they're doing, and they're throwing punches correctly, and so anybody can be knocked out or anybody can be hurt.
Is there any possibility that George Groves could bully Jamie Cox?
Never. I'm adamant on that. He will never bully Jamie Cox. Jamie Cox he's not the kind of character that you will ever bully. He would not allow himself to be bullied in any way.
Is Jamie Cox a bully boy? Is Cox a bully boy?
No, you know something now. I know people are going to go, oh, you're going to fucking say that. he's genuinely right. He's the most loveliest, well-mannered, polite, respectful, loyal person that I've probably ever come across in boxing, and that's the truth, mate.
Oi. What about me?
Well, other than you, he's very, 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 very loyal, very polite, very unassuming, and very quiet. He's a lovely kid.
Dean, you know, I'm gonna say to you, well, of course you said he was manager.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna say that.
Well, wait, okay, all right, hold on, Dean.
I started the conversation off saying that.
Yeah, I know, but Dean, you couldn't say, well, you know what, Jamie's a right prick, you know, and you know he's a prick at times, and
well, anyone who knows me knows that I'm not the most tactile of people.
No,
as much as some people like me, a lot of fucking people fucking dislike me massively because unfortunately I may not always handle situations correctly or have the right terminology or wording for them. I'm not you know, I don't hold a degree. I'm from where I'm from, and I've been brought up and in the environment that I'm, you know, I live in, and I say it as it is, mate. I'm not afraid to say it as it is. If I think you're right, I'm going to say you're right, even if it's somebody I'm with, because you know what's right is right.
Well. Fortunately for you,
if I thought Jamie Cox was that way, I would say that to you, mate.
You would be the first manager in the history of my interviews talking to people that would say, "Yeah, the fight I've got, he's a good fighter, but he's a prick sometimes." I haven't had it yet.
I've actually said it about other fighters that I've had.
Really?
And that's the truth. Yes, mate. And hence why no longer they're with me. I don't like their character. They're not loyal. They're not decent people. You know, so therefore I can't work with them, mate. I'm not. Listen, there's plenty of people in boxing, unfortunately, who kiss me arses, and especially in the area I'm from, involved in boxing, kiss me arse, work with anyone, and that you know, but really they can't stand your guts. I'm not that sort of person. I'm not that sort of person, mate.
I think we've got somebody on a wind up here. He says, I think Io is going to get a shout here. Io, I think Groves is going to make it look easy on Saturday. Chudnoff is more skilled and tougher than Cox.
Could be. You're right there. You might be right. We'll see Saturday night.
Chris, Chris Mason from Darts and Boxing says, are you on Twitter?
I am, yes. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, at Boxing Cox'S on Twitter, and Instagram is Boxing Cox'S as well.
Okay. And is there anything else you want to talk about outside of?
Yeah, tell them don't fucking troll me, for fuck's sake. I told them I'm not the most tactile. Don't be fucking throwing the lines out trying to get into fight, for fuck's sake.
Now you're gonna get trolled all the time now.
I know. I'm gonna get trolled, you ugly looking bastard. Look at this, and this. You don't know what you're on about, but you ain't gonna be the first one to say it to me, so don't worry.
So okay, what else?
I can't even say my mum loves me, Ingram. You know what I mean? If she don't love me, so I've got no chance.
So talk us a bit more about. Okay, we've talked a lot about Groves and Cox. Final thoughts on the fight itself, fight night. How do you?
I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a very dangerous fight for both fighters, especially early. It could be very explosive.
Okay. I was meant to ask about the butcher shop, Jim. Talk to me about that.
Butcher shop, Jim, John Costello, it's Robin's Family Butchers in Chelmsley Wood. And what it is the lads train underneath in the butchers. John's good friends with the Robbins family, and they let us use the gym downstairs. John's a great guy. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a good, honest, loyal person. I love working with him. I'm very lucky to have been asked to come on board and work with Jamie and John and the lads. They really are. They're great. They're really, really, loyalty is everything to me. And they are loyal to the core. They really are. They're good, honest people. And John's got a great little setup down there. Got a ring down there, bags, speedball. Got everything you need, really. As I say, and then Des Witter in close to Birmingham City Centre. He does the strength and conditioning work, and takes all the our scientific approach there regarding that and the nutrition, which really is fantastic. He is, Ingram. He really, really, as I say, I know there's loads of them all around the country, and they're all fantastic, and but this man, genuinely, his results speak for themselves. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Kalia Foy, world champion, trains with him, as does many others. So he's great at what he does, and he's brought Jamie on conditioning and strength wise. Absolutely, tenfold. It's unbelievable.
That's fantastic to hear. Chris Mason asks, have you been to Scott Murray's shows in Cannock? Because you look familiar.
I have been to Cannock, yeah.
So
I've been to the shows in Cannock.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Do I owe him any money? I've been to the shows in Cannock. All over the Midlands, really. As I say, I work with Errol Johnson as well in and around the Midlands, and that, doing shows.
Okay.
And as well as the big shows around the country and all that as well, abroad.
I'm backing Gorguja says I'm backing Groves because I want to see Eubank versus Groves. How does Dean think Cox does versus Eubank if he beats Groves?
I think it's a great fight. What I will say is one simple thing is Eubank loves that right uppercut. Well, just look where his left hand is, and look what Jamie can do with his lead right hook.
Exactly.
He won't get away with putting all his body weight over onto his right foot to drive them uppercuts across and leave his left hand down there and get away with it.
Exactly.
He'll get absolutely iced.
Exactly.
And that's just one fault. That I can pick out from the top of my head. Again, I like to think I'm a student of the game. I studied. I don't look at people's strengths. I look at their weaknesses and exploit them. And he's got a bag full of them as well.
Let me throw one at you. How about him being vulnerable all down the left-hand side? Eubank Jr.
Yeah, but Groves is very weak on his left-hand side.
No, but he's not. Groves is weak, but he's not as weak as Chris Eubank Jr.
Well, no, he isn't, because he uses them feints and then just takes a little bit of space away with his feet. where Eubank stands there, really.
Exactly.
And tries to he puts every single thing into every single shot. Now, he had a fantastic win the other day, but I wouldn't fear Eubank or his power one slight bit. But then again, I'm not the one getting hit with 10-ounce gloves, so why should I?
Exactly. I'm gonna throw another guy in. Here's a guy that I think is being really dismissed, and a guy that I think could do very well in the tournament. His name is Rob Brandt. Do you know anything about Rob Brandt?
Yeah, the American.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Rob Brandt?
He's a good fighter. Again, he's under the radar. I just don't know whether he's got enough in all departments. You haven't got to be great in any single department to but you've just got to be pretty solid all around.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So you've got to be solid all around, and I don't feel that he's solid, an all-round solid fighter to cause too many problems or to win the tournament.
Okay. I look at his resume, okay, and I look at what he's done in the amateurs, and I look at who he's got as his trainer, which is Derek James, and they've got a very good training camp, camp there, with the Charlo and with Spence, and now he's part of that camp as well. So it's a world championship camp he's got there, and guys who are very successful. I look at Brandt and I think to myself, okay, this guy does have some power, and he seems to be able to box fairly well. His test will be against Jürgen Bremer, but if he knocks out Jürgen Bremer, is that really making a statement? Go ahead.
No, not really. Not really. Not at this point in Bremer's career.
Exactly.
I think he does do Bremer, but I don't think he goes no further than the semis.
Okay, but do you think he can beat? Do you think Callum Smith can beat him?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do. Even though Callum Smith had a poor performance the other night, showed so many weaknesses. I believe that he still beats. I believe Smith still beats him. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. It'll be an interesting fight. Let me see. Has anyone else got anything to say? Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about in boxing at the moment that's going on that makes you either burn up inside or makes you laugh?
Well, nothing new. Scoring and decisions, and I know what makes our sport great is that it's opinions. One may see it one way, one may see it the other. But some of the scoring is ridiculous. When it's a close fight, or one fighter may win by 2 rounds, and you'll have one judge suddenly give it the other one by 4 or 5, 6 rounds. You think, well, really, what are you watching here? What did you think of the Golovkin fight in Canelo?
I had Canelo winning the fight. I thought Canelo did better off the back foot.
People are probably going to slaughter me here, but I had Canelo winning as well.
There you go. See,
I know Golovkin was stalking, but for me, and what I'm led to believe, you score it on scoring punches, ring craft, defense, and really. Alvarez had the better defense, the better movement, landed the better combinations, cleaner punches, and the better work. And I thought he just nicked it, to be honest, even though it was a close fight. I don't think you can give it to Golovkin just for stalking. This
is my point. I've said that, but listen, I said it straight to Abel Sanchez, but Sanchez is trolling me at the moment because he just sent the old text message now, and he tells me.
He's probably going to troll me now. I've just said that.
Sanchez said to me that who's been.
You don't know what you're on about.
He says he said to me who's been the most dominant fighter at any weight division.
I messaged you, didn't I? I messaged you on it. I seen that. Who's the most dominant fighter? I said, well, surely he doesn't mean all by knockout because he's limited it to fucking nobody.
There you go. Well, undefeated.
He's limited it to nobody, isn't he?
Well, it's undefeated.
If he's not all by knockout, then he's got to be with resume. Then he'd have to be Mayweather, his hands down. Then it doesn't goes without saying.
Yeah, but he says knockouts and undefeated and knockouts. Who's dominated?
Fucking hell. You couldn't even throw up Edwin Valero's name from back in the, from a few years ago, because even his resume wasn't that great. But really, Golovkin's resume that great up till now.
I know I said that, but fact, you know how it is.
So, again, that's opinions, and
it is.
That's opinions, isn't it?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that's up to that.
What about Fury versus Joseph Parker?
I'm very good friends with Peter Fury and Tyson and all that.
So am I.
You know, I think to be honest, it was a. I thought Fury won. You know, again, people will say, yeah, but they're tic-tac shots, but people don't mind when Mayweather's doing the same thing, or when Rigondeau's doing the same thing, or it's just tip-tapping and moving and being defensive. You know, they're great. I know Hopkins got a lot of stick in his career for at times being defensive, and but people love Mayweather for the same thing.
Question asked: is Jamie Cox on high blood pressure tablets?
What is that?
He doesn't get it because Ortiz got done the other day for PEDs, and they used the blood pressure tablets to hide the actual use of performance enhancing drugs.
He's not on blood pressure tablets. Not yet, anyway. After we win the tournament, we'll be on them.
Okay. Right. Let me think. Is there anything else we've got to talk about? What are your thoughts on the likes of Conor Benn and Anthony Yarde?
Well, it's early days, isn't it? It's early days for both of them. They're both doing everything they're supposed to be doing. Again, the test will be as they move up in levels, and fighters who some resistance and hit back.
Exactly.
Carry a bit of power or whatever and so on, and we'll see how they handle that and where they go from there. That's when you'll be able to properly judge them.
And Daniel Dubois is another one as well. There are some people already want to stick him in for the British title and would have him fight for the World Championship against Anthony Joshua. I think they're crazy.
Who's that?
Yeah, they've put Daniel Dubois, stick him in with the British title and stick him in for a world title against Joshua already. I can't believe some people.
Well, there's no point rushing him. He's 19 years old, isn't he? Don't get me wrong. I think if he went into the British title, he'd win it.
Yeah.
World title, not yet, but again, the sparring stories about Dubois and Joshua, and and he clearly carries an awful lot of power. And as I say, big men like that, when they're going to hit you on the chin, you're going to go, not a world title, but it's not going to be long. So they're going to have to put him in for a British title. But in my opinion, I think he wins one.
Joe Joyce against Ian Lewison. I spoke to Stavern. He said to me that he wouldn't fast track Joe Joyce. What are your thoughts of Joe Joyce versus Ian Lewison?
Well, he's fought, no disrespect, but he's fought a lot better opponents, hasn't he? In the WSB and where he's been at in his amateur career. Why would you backtrack him and start getting him imports that are going to offer no resistance, that are probably fat or blown up cruiserweights or light heavyweights that are going to bend over and take a knee after one round? What's that going to do for him? What's he going to learn from that?
So you think that Lewison's a good test?
Well, of course I do. I think it's a great fight. I think it's a great fight. I think he stops it. And if I'm perfectly honest, within a few rounds, 3-4 rounds.
Okay. What are your thoughts on Dillian White?
Well, again, I know Dillian. He messages me occasionally and whatever else, and I like him. I like his character. I like the way that his game. He's willing to fight anybody, and you can't ask for more than that, can you?
They talk about him fighting Dominic Brazzelli. What do you think of that fight?
Yeah, well, he'd do him when he did Brazzelli. I don't know whether it was just the Joshua fight or whether he showed no heart, did he?
There you go. And finally, the fight that nobody wants to see. Well, I'm not in that nobody category. Stavern versus Wilder 2. What do you think?
I liked Stavern for a while. I did, and I thought, I don't know. You've got to go with Wilder again, haven't you? I'd like to see, ultimately, I like to see Tyson Fury back. I would.
Yes.
For me, he's the best heavyweight there is out there, mate. Sheer size and his movement and footwork for such a big man. He plays with all of them. And that's not just because I'm friends with him, but he does. He plays with them, mate.
Okay, interesting. I do like Tyson, but I don't know. I'd be interested to see if he does step back in the ring again.
No, I hope so. I hope he does.
I hope if he does step back in the ring, he's mentally, physically, and emotionally the best he possibly can be. We might not ever see the Tyson Fury that beat Vladimir Klitschko that night, which is a shame.
Well, yeah, it will be a shame if that is the case. Yeah, it will be a shame.
Yeah. Dean Edwards, thank you so much for doing this interview. Really appreciate it. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time, Ingram. I look forward to seeing you soon, mate.
Absolutely. Before you go again, where people can find you and Jamie Cox?
Instagram is Boxing Cutsman, and Twitter is @BoxingCutsman. Box on both is Jamie Cox Pro. So you can find any of us there, along with John Costello, Jamie's trainer, and the main man, and also Des Wizzer. So you'll be able to find any videos and sessions and follow everything you need on any of them sites.
Thank you so much, Dean. We really appreciate you once again.
No problem. Thank you, Ingram. Take care, mate.
Cheers. All the best. So there you have it. That was Dean Edwards, the manager of Jamie Cox, giving his insight on boxing, on the Groves versus Jamie Cox fight. But coming up next on BWTM, we have one of the people in the room. We have Chris Mason back on BWTM. Yes, the man from darts and boxing will be back on our channel within the next 10 to 15 minutes. We'll have Chris Mason in the room. And he's another straight talking, straight shooting type of fella. We love Chris, and we look forward to having him on the show in the next 10 to 15 minutes. And we want to hear what he's got to say about the world of boxing. And I'm sure he's got a few words to say. See you in 15 minutes.